Hi, welcome to Be Fluent IELTS. I'm your teacher, Masha.
And I'm your teacher, Stu.
Thanks for joining our IELTS channel. We're here to help you improve your IELTS score, um, get to know the test, and give you tips and ideas on how to get a better score. So we want to tell you a little bit about what we do and how this channel can help you. So the first thing that we do is we give you sample answers for specifically the speaking section, part 1, part 2, and part 3.
And we try to make them as natural as possible, as close to a native speaker, to really help give people a good idea of what a normal answer would sound like.
Yeah, and so we might, for example, give you a sample answer of part 1. We will interview each other, and then once we've interviewed each other, we will kind of talk about our answers and talk about what we could have done better, what was good.
Yeah, we can also talk about some of the good vocabulary or idioms that we use that could be good on the exam.
And if you're looking for kind of further help, then we also provide transcripts, vocabulary lists. We can also offer kind of a evaluation for the speaking and writing. So we can tell you more about that later. Um, but yeah, so Stu, why do we like the IELTS?
Well, I think one of the things I like best about it is that you don't really have to fight the format of the exam. It is a lot easier or a lot more natural, I think, compared to like TOEFL, that you're speaking into a computer. It's really awkward, and I think it adds a lot of stress with the time limit. But with IELTS, I like that it's a conversation
Hmm.
or similar to a conversation, and it's a lot more relaxed, and I think it's a better assessment of someone's abilities.
Yeah, I agree with everything you're saying. I think out of all the tests out there, it's a great level assessment. It really makes you study the language, not just memorize some like formats or templates. So you
Right.
can't really get away with memorizing. You really have to show your natural ability.
Yeah, it is. I think it's if someone was trying to cheat at the exam, it would take more effort than just learning the language.
That's true. Um, so just starting with the speaking section. The speaking section is a nice section compared to, like, for example, the TOEFL, where, like you said, Stu, you're staring at like a computer screen. There are 3 parts, and it kind of starts with more kind of small talk, then goes into giving details, and then more of a deeper kind of discussion. Um, so for
Mm.
part 1,
Yeah, so it's part one is one that uh, is is kind of like small talk. They're familiar topics, so something that you experience every day. So it could be, where you come from, hobbies, music, movies, sports. It could be anything. And normally they're not super in-depth questions, and so it's not really a discussion about big topics.
yeah, students often ask, like, how long should I talk for? Just answer the question, maybe give a detail, but don't spend too much time talking here.
Right. Yeah, it is. It's one that I think, of course, it's always important to answer, but you don't need to overanalyze your answers for part one.
Um, in part 2,
So part two is a bit more challenging. That's where you're given a topic and you have to talk for 2 straight minutes without interruption. And it is not actually very easy, especially if it's your first time. Speaking for 2 minutes is a very long time, and I think even native speakers usually stop after about a minute and a half. And so it's one that you really need to focus a lot on storytelling.
Mm.
You have to think about trying to use some idioms and different types of grammar because it's going to be really important for your evaluation.
Yeah, so it's good to use like connectors and thinking of as many examples as you can just to get through those 2 minutes. Because yeah, even for
Yeah.
native speakers, it's really hard.
Sure. It's yeah, it's one that it is often based on a single experience you had. And so it's one that the more details you can come up with, the easier it's going to be to talk for the 2 minutes.
Yeah, exactly. Um, so even like turning the timer on and just sitting quietly for 2 minutes is a good exercise to get used to the feeling of what 2 minutes really is.
Right. Because yeah, it is. It's something that we don't often do. It's essentially a monologue.
For 2 minutes. And part three,
Part three is designed to be very challenging, and so don't feel bad if it's something that you struggle with. It is a continuation of part two, but it is something that is a lot more in depth. It's also talking generally. So part two is about your experience, but part three is about the world or your community, about people in general.
yeah, so making sure to read the news and making sure to be up on current events is really useful for this section because, if they ask you about technology or any kind of trends, coming up with examples will be really easy.
Yeah, and also too, I think you do have to think about things over time as well,
Mm.
and so you might get questions about how something has changed over time, and so it does take a little bit of more general knowledge to be able to answer the questions.
Um, but it's a really good test, and almost every student says that they really kind of enjoy studying for the test because they do see their levels improve, and it does push you to go beyond just taking a test. It really makes you think about um, your English and also the world because of the topics that are asked on the test.